Hello everybody, and welcome to another one of these weird kind of videos where I sit in a hut somewhere in the world, in nature, and talk to the camera about random bullshit. And today I want to talk about fat phobia. That is on the agenda today, so I would like to start this video by real quick saying I just ingested a large amount of medical marijuana, totally legally and recreationally. And so please bear with me if I go on tangents or, take a long pause to think about what the fuck I was just talking about. So the reason I'm making this video is in response to a message I got on my survey that I posted in my video from the other day. I posted a survey. People, I wanted feedback on various things, and I specifically made my survey anonymous, so I don't know who it is. But somebody asked me, or I guess one of their pieces of feedback was that my videos, when I talk about fat people, fatness, fat phobia, when I talk about food, that sometimes my takes on fat people themselves are messy. That was the feedback I got. I have a messy take on fat people. And I agree. That is an accurate assessment of the situation. And I thought I would make a video to explain why it's a messy subject. I have a piece of hair in here, so. Why is fat phobia a messy subject? I think it is inherently a messy subject. I don't think fat people are bad, but being fat is bad. And that's a difficult thread to needle. And so I'm going to try to do my best in this video. But where do we start? Well, we start with the Tophys. Tophy is a medical term. It says thin on the outside, T-O, fat on the inside. If we look at the numbers, about 1 in 5 Americans are metabolically ill. They have certain things like pre-diabetes, fatty liver disease, so on and so forth. Not all of them are obese or fat. So how does that happen? Well, it happens because Tophys, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. Fat can accumulate based on your genetics, based on all kinds of things, your genetics, your epigenetics, what kinds of foods you're eating, what kinds of exercises you're doing. People will store fat in different areas of their bodies, right? Some people store fat on their belly. Some people store fat on their thick thighs, and some people store fat around their liver and other organs. And that is what we call Tophys. Now, if we look at the numbers, 93% of Americans are metabolically ill. But if we look at the numbers on obesity or overweightness, are 93% of Americans obese? No, they're not. Right? I believe obesity, last time I checked, which has not been too recently, maybe a year ago, is somewhere around 40% of Americans are in the realm of obese. So where does that leave everyone else? If 93% of Americans are metabolically ill, and being metabolically ill leads to disease, and disease, we don't want disease, why are we focusing on fat people? You tell me. Why? Why are fat people routinely mocked in society? Well, they look funny. That's why. Now, is that fair? All kinds of people look funny. Should we be making fun of everyone that has a certain kind of feature that makes them look funny? People with glasses look funny. People with red hair look funny. All kinds of people look funny. Should we shame them? Should we mock them because they look funny? And when you see people shame and mock fat people, they do it out of like this concern trolling mentality. Oh, we're looking out for you. We want you to be happy. We want you to be healthy. But again, 93% of Americans are metabolically ill. Metabolic syndrome, which 93% of Americans have in some degree, is the number one precursor for diabetes and other illnesses such as fatty liver disease. So You tell me, why are we so concerned about fat people? It's because the Tophys want to pretend. They want to live in an alternate fucking reality. They want to live in a fantasy of their own creation where they're not sick. It's everyone else. The fatties, they're sick. Those fat motherfuckers. Look how unhealthy they are. They're ruining society, those fat motherfuckers. Meanwhile, 95% of Americans don't eat vegetables. Look it up. 95% fiber. Look it up. 93% of Americans are metabolically ill. How do you become metabolically ill? From not eating vegetables. If you don't eat vegetables, what the fuck are you eating? Hamburgers, chicken, pizza, fast food, ice cream. That's the American diet. Fast food, ice cream. And I got news for y'all. When you reheat garbage from the freezer to the microwave, that's essentially fast food. It's the same level of unhealthy as fast food. So, now that we've gotten the Tophys out of the way, where do we go next on analyzing fatness and fat phobia in our society? We live, at this moment in time, in the year 2023, in some of, if not the most stressful periods of all of human history. Now, that may sound ridiculous. I mean, look, we got phones, we got homes, we got food and water, we got shelter. Now, again, food in quotation marks, right? So why are we so stressed? Well, it's because we were born as a species in an extraordinarily stressful environment, and we learned how to manage that stress. Oh, what was stress useful for? When we were younger in our evolutionary history, stress was useful for, oh shit, there's a lion, that motherfucker's gonna kill me, I gotta get the hell out of here. Then you get the hell out of here, what happens? The stress goes away. So we have stress networks in our bodies that were designed for a purpose that we no longer really experience. So we live in a very stressful society. I mean, every time you look at your phone, you're stressing yourself. Every time you reload your notifications on your text messages, right? When you check your email, it signals the same stress response. Oh shit, a tiger is gonna fuck me up. But you never actually run away from the tiger or the lion or whatever, the alligator. So your stress response is triggered. And then what do? You ignore the email, you ignore the thing or whatever. And I do this too, right? And then what happens? It's still there. You still got to deal with it. So we never really get a reprieve. We're constantly triggered. We're getting big doses of stress on a day-to-day basis. And most people don't know how to de-stress. Now, when most people say, oh, I'm going to de-stress, what do they mean? Oh, they're going to smoke a fat joint, which, hey, that can help. Oh, they're going to drink some wine. They're going to have a six-pack. That can help. But another way to help is to avoid these triggers in the first place. But our modern society is full of triggers. Everything is stressful. You got to get to work on time. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. It has to be perfect. It has to be this. You got to do this. You got to eat well. You got to do all this. You got to exercise. You got to do this. But none of these things seem to work because of stress. You ever see people that go to the gym all the time? They do all this. They count their calories and they can't lose weight? Probably because they're so fucking stressed about counting all their calories and getting 28,000 specific reps in this weird portfolio that they've got going on that they're undoing the progress of the... Now, am I saying that exercise is bad? No, of course not. Am I saying that eating healthy is bad? No, of course not. But you need a holistic approach to this kind of stuff. You can't just eat well and not exercise. You can't just exercise and not eat well. And you can't just de-stress without doing the other things as well. We need all of the above. And again, stress, cortisol running through our veins on a daily basis without any real drain valve. That makes people fat. So, what do we do about this? If we want fat people to be healthy, right? If that's the societal goal, what do we do about it? Get rid of our phones, get rid of emails, change our society completely? Because that's what I believe. I believe we need a complete restructure of society from the ground up. That's what I believe. So, Stress. Now, what else contributes to fatness in America? Our food supply has been poisoned. That's what? From processed food and junk food being poison. Sugar, by the way. Real quick, what is sugar? This is a rhetorical question. I will answer it momentarily. What is alcohol? Think about it. Alcohol is sugar where certain kinds of organisms have fermented it. What is fermentation? When certain organisms will consume and metabolize certain parts of something, and then that is a chemical process, it changes. So they metabolize certain aspects of a certain thing, and then the sugar turns to alcohol. But when you ingest these substances, how does your body process it? Well, we know that alcohol damages the brain, right? You know, you get drunk and sometimes you forget what happened, right? But so does sugar. Think about it. What is alcohol? Alcohol is sugar where some other organism that's not us did part of the fermentation process. They metabolized a percent chunk. I'm sorry, I'm getting high here. They metabolized a percentage chunk of the sugar and turned it into alcohol. But when we metabolize sugar, what happens? Well, we have to go through the same process, right? With our bodies. Now, again, when we eat sugar, we don't get drunk because the way our bodies process sugar is it doesn't create the alcohol. We just go straight to the next step. And so when you are eating sugar, you're essentially, the impact on your liver and your brain is very similar to alcohol. Now, again, it's different. I'm not saying it's the same. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it's very similar. And one of my examples for this is 1 in 5, 20% of America children have fatty liver disease. 20%. Look it up. What is fatty liver disease? We used to call it the disease of alcohol. Back in the day, what we knew about fatty liver was people who would drink too much alcohol would get liver poisoning and die. Now, because we give our kids juice boxes and cereal, which is poison, it's drugs, a juice box and an apple cider are not that different metabolically. If you would think, oh, I would never give my kid alcohol, beer for children? Oh my gosh! Oh, wow! But you give your kid a juice box? Really? Really? Now again, am I blaming parents here? Yeah, I am. A little bit. Because it's okay, you've been lied to. We've all been lied to. There is a fucking bee. Alright, I think they're gone. Well, shit, what was I talking about? Fuck me. Okay, we give our kids juice boxes. That's dangerous. So am I blaming parents when I say this? No, because it's okay to be lied to. But once you've heard this, once you, like, whether it be for me or you hear this and you do your own research afterward, once you know how bad sugar is for kids, like once you really look into this, now am I saying you shouldn't give kids sugar at all? No. But you need to teach them what it is. And should you give them sugar, like juice boxes and cereal, every day? Of course not. That's called being an alcoholic. That's how addictions are formed. But once a week, you want to go to the ice cream parlor? That's a whole different story. I believe everything is fine in moderation, right? But once again, if you have heard this truth about the poisoned food supply, and you still choose to feed your kid garbage, I would consider that child abuse. Now, we can have a whole host of excuses. Oh, it costs too much money, this and that, blah, 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 no time to cook. Shouldn't have had the kid in the first place. I'm sorry. That's a topic for a different video, so let's move on. So I've already mentioned the statistics. 93% of Americans are metabolically ill. 95% of Americans do not eat vegetables. They do not eat fiber, to be more specific. Right? So what are they eating? They're eating processed food, junk food, garbage, drugs. There is no difference between, okay, just to be honest with you, there is a difference. Obviously, they're different compounds, they're different chemicals, they have a different chemical reaction. But societally speaking and health-wise, why do we treat heroin addicts like garbage in our society? Why do we laugh at them? Why do we put them in jail, in cages, for the crime of being addicted to a substance? Why do we ignore them on the streets? Why do we judge heroin addicts? When, not, according to the numbers, 95% of Americans are junk food addicts. If you're not eating vegetables, what are you eating? Am I supposed to believe that most Americans are like these weird carnivore meat-only diets? Like, if you're not eating vegetables, what are you eating, motherfucker? So, again, it's a drug. Junk food is a drug. Now, again, hey, I'm high right now. I love drugs. Recreationally, in moderation, being educated on a subject. Anything you put in your body, you should have read books about. You should read research papers about. You should read everything about anything you put into your body. But people just accept on faith, magical thinking, religious even in nature, they accept by faith that the U.S. government has their best interest in mind when it comes to the food supply. In the 1970s, the president, Richard Nixon, hated black people so much that not only did he start the war on drugs, but Richard Nixon and his agriculture secretary were afraid that black people in certain districts, certain major cities, because in the minds of white racists in the 1960s and 70s, black people are inherently violent. They're just going to fuck shit up. They're evil. They're violent creatures, according to Richard Nixon. You can look this up, Richard Nixon's beliefs on black people. Disgusting garbage. And he was afraid that there was a food crisis in the late 1960s. And he was afraid, Richard Nixon and his agriculture secretary, they were afraid that black people would riot and destroy the country, burn the country down over lack of access to food. So what did they do? They started putting poison in the food supply in the form of things like corn subsidy and high fructose corn syrup to mass manufacture things that look like food. They taste kind of like food, but nutritionally, well, not really doing so much. It keeps you alive, technically, so you can keep going to work and operate the machines and give the big capitalists all of your value and labor and soul. But it makes you chronically ill. It makes you have brain fog, metabolic disease, early death. Maybe, if the government is lucky, you'll die before 65 or 67 or whatever they change it to, 69, before you can collect Social Security and Medicare. Right, so think about this stuff. The food supply has been poisoned. Why? Because of racism. I'm a white person. I'm sure white people are watching this video right now. So we have to deal with our food being poisoned because racist white people hated black people so much that instead of actually providing people food that was nutritious and healthy, they mass manufactured a poison to placate people, and it worked. That's the truth that you don't want to hear, is it worked. If you look at the numbers, organizations like corporations like McDonald's and Burger King, some people call them restaurants. They are not restaurants. Restaurants implies that they serve food. They do not serve food. They serve drugs. They're drug dealers. So drug dealing multinational conglomerates in the United States of America are heavily tied to the black community. In a lot of major cities, drug dealing multinational conglomerates like McDonald's and Burger King would do campaigns focused on trying to reach out to black people, advertising that their food is really cheap and that they're helping feed so many people. You ever see this on the McDonald's signs, like 1 billion people served, or like 10 billion people? Like, I don't, like, you know, I remember seeing the number change over time. But you ever see this? Some McDonald's, they have a sign where they're like, happy people served X number, and it changes. What did they serve them with? They serve them with something that they think is food, but is actually poison. It is food in appearance only. And even then, that's a stretch. Look at some of the shit that they sell at McDonald's. Even then, that's a stretch. So again, I can go more in depth on here, but our food supply has been poisoned. That's a fact. So now, the next thing I want to talk about is body positivity. So this is why this video is going to be messy. Because this is a messy motherfucking subject. The body positivity movement, I think, there's good parts to it, there's bad parts to it, but the message is unclear. So let me tell you what kind of body positivity I have. I believe no one should be mocked for their appearance. If you're fat, okay. That shouldn't be a joke. Unless you want it to be. If you are a fat person and you enjoy fat people jokes, that's your right. But we shouldn't assume that every fat person likes fat people jokes, because, let's be honest, they don't. And to be honest with you, I've said this before, I used to be extremely fat. I used to be 270-ish pounds. That's when I stopped weighing myself. And like a lot of obese people, I got afraid of the scale. So, and when I started losing weight, I decided I wasn't going to look at the scale for a month because I didn't want to know. Some people do a starting weigh-in. I was scared of that. So I don't actually really know. I could have hit 300 pounds. I could have been 290. I don't know what my peak was, but I know what the peak was on the scale. It was like 267-ish, okay? And again, water weight. There's so many things about the scale, like weight, that is a bad metric. I personally believe if you're trying to lose weight or get healthier, throw a scale away. If you have a scale in your house, throw it the fuck away, because it's going to cause more harm than good. That's my opinion. But some people, you may have heard the term healthy at any size. That's bullshit. Healthy at any size is fucking bullshit. But again, all right? Tophys. Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. How come we don't make fun of them? 93% of Americans have the #1 precursor to diabetes. LMAO! Dumb motherfucker, you don't know how to eat yourself? What, you don't have free will? What, you get cravings? You succumb to your cravings? 93%? Yeah, this is the shit that people talk about, fat people. Oh, it's willpower, man. You're just weak. You're just weak. That's what they say to fat people. Even though we know that processed food is chemically addictive. It's not just a matter of willpower. It is literally, in some instances, some foods are as addictive as opioids on the brain, the way the brain processes it. So again, and also, again, most people in this country, regardless of their size, are unhealthy motherfuckers. But the idea that you can be healthy at any size is objectively bullshit. But, again, we should not be shaming people for how they look. Some people store their fat on their liver and get fatty liver disease. Some people store their fat on their belly. Honestly, if you look it up, again, what is the opposite of a Tophys? Fat on the outside, thin on the inside, which does exist. There are fat people that are healthier than thin people. There are people that are 250 pounds that are healthier than someone who is 140 pounds. That's real. You can eat a lot of food, but if you're eating good food, healthy food, it's a different story. If you're eating large quantities of high-quality food, you are still going to gain weight. You will still be fat, which, again, at a certain point is its own health condition. But overall, you can still have a way, way higher standard of health, overall quality, than the average thin person. But I really don't like the idea that being fat is something necessarily to be proud of, because it is not. It is not something to be proud of. Now, am I saying you should be ashamed of yourself? No. You were lied to. You were abused from birth. From birth. You were groomed into a society where feeding children poison and addicting them to fructose is standard practice. They put high fructose corn syrup in baby food. Baby food. Which is controlled by, I believe, 3 companies. All baby food in the country, I believe it's 3, maybe 4 companies control the whole thing. And there's fucking fructose in the baby food. How did humans survive before we had fructose in the baby food? Did they all just die? Did humans like start being invented like 60 years ago? Is the last Tuesday theory accurate? Why do we need fructose in the baby food? Why? Ask yourself, why is fructose in the baby food? It's not your fault you're fat. Willpower does exist. But in order to have willpower, you need to understand that you are addicted to a chemically addictive drug. If you have heroin, would you ask a heroin addict to just quit cold turkey randomly without like preparing for it? Without getting like a drug to reduce the withdrawal effect? Without maybe taking 2 weeks off of work or checking into a hospital? You're just going to ask a heroin addict, quit cold turkey. Well, guess what happens? They'll die. Or they'll relapse. And so, in this country where we make fun of fat people, we make fun of fat people for all the wrong fucking reasons. And it's disgusting. And there is an overcorrection in the healthy at any size movement. I understand the feeling to push back. I get it. But we need to push back in a different way. And I hope this video helps explain that. And I got a little bit more I want to talk about. On the subject of being lied to. Because again, I'm 27 years old. My mom, I like to say this. I was raised by a single mother, and my mother and my father would fight and compete for my attention my entire life. They were never married, right? So I never had like this family unit that existed and then it broke apart. Some people, they have that, you know, it's like the divorced child thing, you know, and that happens, and that's traumatic. But for me, that was my life from the get-go. I never had that 2-person family unit. I always had 1 versus 1. 1v1 me guardian, motherfucker. And what they would do to compete for my love was they would both give me fast food and ice cream. Why have bonding time with a child when you can come home from work, hand them a bag of French fries, and go take a nap? That was how I was raised, and I know a lot of people in this country have similar experiences, even if you're not from a one-person family household, one-parent family household. So a lot of people had the same experience. And am I blaming the parents? No, not necessarily, because we were lied to. Look at the 1990s. I was born in 1996. A lot of people that watch my videos may have been born in the 1990s or the 1980s, but in the 1990s, there was a gigantic push for low-fat nutritional content in meals. That is the exact opposite of what we need in this country. We need high-fat, low-carbohydrate, high-protein meals. But because fat is a scary word, you don't want to be fat because fat's silly and people are going to make fun of you, we associate fatness, or more specifically, we associate fats, the chemical, the nutrient, we associate fats with negativity, even though fats are required for our bodies to fucking function. Right? So, in the 1990s, where I was born, there was a massive high-carb, low-fat push by the government, and the government got that directive by organizations like the American Diabetes Association. I just dropped my pen. And where does the American Diabetes Association get their money? Coca-Cola. Soda companies and sugar companies and pasta companies, they fund the scientists that do the research They came up with a scientifically illiterate, low-fat, high-carb diet, and that was installed into the American psyche in the 1990s, and we are still paying that price. So again, if you're fat and you've had struggle with weight loss, I did too. The first step is awareness. Now, one other thing I want to say, and maybe I'll do a whole separate video on this subject. Let me know. If you've watched this far, let me know in the comment section. I'm going to touch upon calories briefly, and I'm willing to do an entire video on the subject, an entire 30-40 minute video on calories alone. Calories are a scam. They don't exist. There's no such thing as calories. And I'm going to give you the short version here. Do your own research, or I'll make a follow-up video if you want me to. Calories are a scam. They don't exist. How do we figure out what a calorie is? We throw a food item in a box and blow it up and test the energy output. Okay. That tells us how many calories are in the food. Now, I like to connect calories to IQ. What does the IQ test tell you? It tells you how well you did on the IQ test. Does it tell you how intelligent you are? No. Some people think that is true, but that's been debunked. IQ as an intelligence barometer was debunked. So the IQ test tells you how good you are at the IQ test. And we can use that as a proxy, right? If someone has like a 300 IQ, that means something, right? It means that they did really well on this test, and this test was designed for this certain kind of certain kind of people excel in a certain kind of way, right? So that does tell us something. We do learn something. I'm not saying that IQ is worthless, but it's not necessarily intelligence. And the same applies to calories. Calories, again, what does the calorie tell you? It tells you how much energy was created by blowing it up in a box. A calorie doesn't tell you how your body metabolizes and processes a fucking chemical. That's not what calories are. If you believe that a calorie is a calorie, then drinking a 12-pack of Coca-Cola is healthier than eating a gigantic salad. Right? Because it's calories in, calories out. That is a lie. Calories in, calories out is a lie. It's a lie. It's another fucking scam that scam artists funded by the food, soda, and sugar industries, the cereal industries, have been shoving down our throats. Where did calories come from? Calories are on everything. Calories are on the menus at McDonald's now. They have low-calorie meals. They want to convince you that this is still edible. Who pushed for putting calories on menus? Coca-Cola. Why? Why would one of the biggest poison production companies in the world push for calories on menus? Because they want to mislead you and they want to scam you. Again, we live in a society of lies. It's okay if you've been lied to. We've all been lied to. I've been lied to. It took me a long time. It took me 20-something years, 24 years or so of being alive to figure out just how fucked up, and I'm still learning every day. I'm still learning just how fucked up, how deep the corruption goes. But the first step to healing yourself in any context, whether that be trauma, whether that be physical injuries, whether that be mental health issues, and whether that be your diet, the first step to healing in anything is awareness. Without awareness, without an accurate portrayal of the facts, you're fucked. Because people were told low fat, high carb is good for you. And they were trying to be healthy. And then they got fat. Is it really their fault? We just live in a corrupt society. Every aspect of this society is corrupt. It's not just Wall Street. It's not just K Street. Right? It's not just politics. It's everything. Everything is politics, and politics is everything. What you put in your body is a political choice. You can stay asleep, or you can wake up. So if you've made it this far, you have no excuse. Start doing research. I'm not telling you to start changing everything today, but awareness is the first step. Keep eating garbage. In fact, what I would suggest is to keep eating garbage. Read books about the subject. One of my favorite books on the subject is Metabolical by Dr. Robert Lustig. I recommend that book. I personally think it is the most coherent of a political and health synthesis of a single book I could recommend, but there's plenty of others. Start with awareness. Eat the garbage and learn about the garbage as you're eating it, and then ask yourself, is this worth it? You tell me.